Could have been taller.
What's that smell? Just like cornbread done too well. What you need, you know I got. So hands up, who wants to rock?
Good evening, Metal Faithful. It is I, your mandated reporter, and frankly, I'm mortified, Mr. Mark Radulich, and this is the Metal Hammer of Doom. Tonight, we are reviewing Sabaton, the war to end all wars. It is the 10th studio album by Swedish heavy metal band Sabaton. IKEA's from Sweden. I like meatballs. And it was released...
you did the thing.
I did the thing. And it was released on... Quiet, you. Released on March 4th, 2022. The album serves as the sequel to the band's 2019 album, The Great War, which you can find in our archives as we reviewed that. It is a concept album which, like its predecessors, focuses on the atrocities, miracles, and happenings around World War I, such as those of the Christmas Truce, the stormtroopers of the German army, the race to the sea, for which we did a reaction video. You can check that out in the archives. The Treaty of Versailles, the predominant dreadnought type of battleship during the early 20th century, and others. The single Christmas Truth was nominated for Music Video of the Year at the 2021 Global Metal Apocalypse Awards, finishing second overall. And joining me to review this, we have a special guest, but first, we must bring on the regular panel members. Ladies and gentlemen, my brother from another mother, the disapproving dad, Mr. Essential, big time, Jesse Starcher. How do you do, sir?
Big time. All right. Yeah, just keep adding things on there, Mark.
Well, I'm sorry that you felt that my little old network was too claustrophobic for you, and you needed to go off on your own and be your own man. Be a man, Jesse Starcher.
I'm looking at it right now, and my first episode on my own solo feed dropped March 6th. So can we say it April 6th? We'll just go ahead and we'll finally be able to get over it. Does that sound all right, Mark? 1 month of mourning. No, hey, man, I am glad to be back.
Have you
here
had
on the
enough of
Metal
my
Hammer
antics? Is that what you're telling me?
I know I can tell you to stop, and you will not. So that's the fun of this.
You know me so
it's
well.
me telling you to stop and you continuing to do the shit that annoys me. So that's perfectly fine. No, man, I'm glad to be here, man. We're talking Sabaton tonight. I'm so excited. So excited.
Ladies and gentlemen, also joining us once again, Robert Cooper, the Metal Coop. Are you there with your girlfriend this time, or are you flying solo?
Well, she actually had to leave because she didn't have the right shoes for work tomorrow. So it's just me and Dave.
So how weirded out was she when she heard on the podcast that I said that I fancied her for no good reason?
I mean, I think she was all right. Like,
okay.
I think at this point she's just come to expect it.
Okay.
She hears the shit that comes out of my mouth on a daily basis. So the fact that, other people might have other weird things to say, it's just kind of normal.
Good. I'm glad that she just accepts my lasciviousness and just, moves on with her life. Good girl. Tell her I said good girl. It'll get you.
I will.
That'll get you some
Mark
points.
says, good girl.
Yeah, that'll get you some points, buddy. That'll get you laid for sure. Speaking of getting you laid for sure, ladies and gentlemen, from JMU Hollywood and from 411media.com, where he brings you the MMA and the wrestling coverage, whether you like it or he likes it or not. Ladies and gentlemen, the love of my life, the great love of my life, Robert Winfree, Sabaton fan extraordinaire. How do you do, sir?
It was amazing, Mark. Not a single sentence of that was true.
Thanks, Kermit.
You're welcome. No, again, gimmickry aside, always happy to be here and spend some time with you guys. So,
Hey.
yeah, just a good time will be had by all, as Mark intimated, whether you like it or not.
Well, we like to bring you on for the Sabaton, not just because you enjoy the band and we enjoy you enjoying things, but also to give us a history lesson, as I'm going to mispronounce things, as each one of these songs are about a specific historical incident or something, or incident adjacent, and none of us will know what it's talking about. But Robert will have charts and diagrams and be able to explain the whole thing, and this podcast is going to be about 8 hours long. So I'm looking forward to that.
I'm trying to cut it down. I'm looking for more like 8 hours and 10 minutes.
Perfect.
Roughly as long as the Batman.
Oh my God! All right. So,
Hey, I enjoyed it, even though I also agree that last act was. I was like, cool. All right, this is really great. I love the way this ended. Everything's wrapped up, and I'm like, wait a minute, what the fuck is this? I forgot about the Riddler.
They're still going. They're still going. They're still going.
oh
Why
my God,
are they
it's still going.
I mean, I adored the movie, but also, yeah.
Batman, my vagina hurts. Just stop already. Either finish and get off me, or just get off me. But stop already.
And he's just like pounding there, be like, I'm vengeance.
I'm vengeance. I'm vengeance. I'm vengeance. I don't care who you are. Get off me. All right. Second time I've made that joke today. Let's get into the album before Jesse leaves us because he can't take any of our nonsense anymore. How's that sound?
I'm mentally not here, so it's okay.
Those are the best podcasts, don't you know?
I'm ready.
All right, here we go. The first 3 tracks on this album are as follows. We've got Personality, Stormtroopers, Dreadnought, and The Unkillable Soldier. So I really love the gallop on Stormtroopers and the Unkillable Soldier. It's probably like one of the things I like best about how Sabaton writes their music. Dreadnought was a little on the slower side for me. I didn't not like it, but I didn't love it. Stormtroopers and the Unkillable Soldier, of those three, are the two that I liked, and probably Stormtrooper the best. Robert Winfree, let me go to you first. So the first, so we skipped Sarajevo. That because why did we skip Sarajevo?
We didn't. It's not on digital. It's apparently one song that is specific to the physical format, which is, it's, as you can see there, it talks about the assassination of Archduke. Oh my goodness, I had it in front of me. Archduke Franz Ferdinand.
Yeah. Okay, cool.
Which is this? That's the impetus of the whole First World War, correct?
Yes.
Largely, it's also, I mean, that's what kicks it off, but that's actually a really, if you've not read the shocking amount of coincidence and fate, essentially, that went into how that happened, it's kind of crazy.
Really?
We talked a little bit about that when
obviously
we reviewed Munich, the Art of War, what was it? The Edge of War. Edge of War, that's what it was.
Just for I can be brief here, but I mean, obviously, this group had planned the assassination of the Archduke. He's the heir to the Austro-Hungarian Empire. He's like the crowned prince, and he's in Sarajevo. And the Serbs there are not happy about being part of the Austro-Hungarian Empire. This is somewhat complicated by the fact that the Archduke is something of a friend to the Serbs. Leave it to the Serbs. He's been kind of championing their cause and whatnot, and these guys it's more about patriotism than this guy in particular has screwed us over. And so they plan the assassination. The first attempt, they drive by 3 people who are planted to try and kill him. It doesn't work. They finally get to the last guy who chucks a bomb at them. It goes off, but it doesn't kill any of the relevant people. The would-be assassin feels sad and runs away. He's not caught. Hang on. I say he feels sad and runs away because he actually goes to a deli and gets a sandwich while trying to figure out what to do next. Meanwhile, the Archduke is not whisked out of the country for safety. He and his wife decide he wants to go see the people who were injured in the attempt on his life, because there was a bomb that went off. People were hurt. He wants to go visit the wounded. They all decide this is a good idea. His driver is not familiar with the city and takes a wrong turn. Then their car stalls out, literally in front of the shop where the assassin is eating his sandwich.
Oh my gosh!
Nice.
He then pulls out a gun, and the assassin then pulls out a pistol and shoots the Archduke and his wife dead.
Wow.
All right, well, let's talk about the 3 songs we actually heard. Stormtroopers, The Unkillable Soldier, which was a single that was released on February 11th, 2022, and Dreadnought. Stormtroopers, as the wiki tells me, it's just a specialist soldiers of Imperial Germany. Dreadnought type is about a type of battleship at the Battle of Jutland. And then The Unkillable Soldier, Adrian Carton de Weert, during World War I. Robert, your thoughts on the songs, the history, life, the universe, and everything?
42.
Thank you.
I was going to say there's 2 of us.
No, he knew I meant him.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, you mentioned the Stormtroopers and how you like the gallop that goes with it. I agree with that. Again, Stormtroopers are simply a category of soldier before they became memes. I'm not. The song draws a comparison between the use of these types of troops towards the closing end of World War I and the development of the theory of the Blitzkrieg that was used in World War II. Little bit of a stretch, but also, there's enough that's being changed around this point of time in military theory that it's not an egregious comparison to draw. You mentioned Dreadnoughts. That's actually my favorite song from this album, I think, is Dreadnought. I like the slower pace of it.
Of course it is.
That's
the one I didn't like.
Of these 3, I'm going to agree with Robert. I really Cooper, or no, not Cooper. Cooper hasn't talked yet. That'd be Winfree. I'm agreeing here with Winfree. I like Dreadnought.
I like the wordplay that goes on in it too. Just it's not
Good.
Again, it's nothing that's going to shake up the world, but I enjoyed it, especially for Sabaton, who doesn't do a lot of clever wordplay. Again, dreadnoughts are a type of battleship. They were first used during World War I, and they were the largest warships of their time. Prior to this, the general configuration for a battleship was you had 2 sets of large guns and then 3 or 4 sets of smaller ones. Now, bear in mind, these are naval small guns, so they're still quite large. But as, technology and industry developed, people realized, hey, we can cram a bunch of these large guns on here and it'll still work. So that's what they started doing, and there was one battle where the 2 dreadnoughts kind of squared off. They fired at each other, and then they both went away because neither group wanted to risk them. Naval assets like that take a lot of time and money to recreate if they're destroyed. It's one of the big reasons that the Battle of Midway in World War II was so big, because the Japanese never had enough time to recreate the losses they suffered in terms of just raw material. So it's a little bit like that the famous battle, if you're a fan of the American Civil War, between the first ironclad ships, where they showed up, they fired cannons at each other for a bit. Some people got hurt, but neither ship was actually sunk. They both went away. But it's more about what it means for warfare going forward rather than the individual battle itself, and that's kind of what we came down with here. The Unkillable Soldier is a great character, actually. This guy served in Africa. He served in the Boer War in South Africa. Then when World War I broke out, he served there. He survives World War I, serves in the Second World War, and survives that as well. I believe it was just during World War I, he was shot several times. In the face, head, stomach, ankle, leg, hip, ear, blinded in his left eye. He survived 2 different plane crashes and at one point tunneled out of a prisoner of war camp. Lost his left hand. Partially, he had wound up tearing off some of his own fingers because the doctor wouldn't amputate, and then he wound up losing the hand more or less. And at the end of his memoirs of the First World War, he wrote, "Frankly, I enjoyed the war."
Brilliant.
When they say that they don't make them like they used to.
Yeah, wow.
This is what they're talking about.
He is the Maytag washing machine of war.
So Jesse, go ahead and talk about your thoughts on the songs or respond to what Robert was just talking about.
Well, okay, so I've already talked about that. I like Dreadnought of the 3.
Mm-hmm.
I will say that as far as story goes, that's what Sabaton is known for, is telling a story in their songs. They're telling you history. A lot of, that's their thing. The Unkillable Soldier might win the story off of this album because that dude went through some stuff. And as far as we've seen Sabaton grab really great tales from warfare and really great figures from specific battles and shine a light on them with songs. I think that one's going to win the story of the album for me. That guy's got some stuff. He's got some nuts, that's for sure. he's got some nuts. So, but yeah, I mean, Dreadnought's probably Stormtroopers brings it in great. Dreadnought is keeping up the pace, and the Unkillable Soldier is a great story to listen to. So,
all right, go ahead, Cooper. Take me home on this particular first round of 3 songs here. What'd you think?
I mean, I greatly enjoyed them. I'll say that the Unkillable Soldier I found to be fascinating, just as Robert was saying. I was not actually aware of his exploits before listening to this album, and that is one thing I really do appreciate about Sabaton is, in a lot of ways, sometimes their songs as a full album can drone a little, not all the songs hit the same way, but they're, even when the music is, less than optimal, there's a lot of times when still the subject matter rules altogether.
Right.
For me, I would say all 3 of these songs are very good. I'm really liking the gallop that they have. I feel like it's a little more reminiscent of some of their older stuff, because after Careless Rex, I think like almost the entire band quit. and I really feel like it's been a noticeable difference in their sound, I guess, in terms of the sort of different things they bring, because some of the stuff off their the more current albums I kind of feel are just more of a standard verse chorus verse kind of mid-level guitar solo, let's get out of here, tell a story. I really enjoyed the very fast tapping on the intro to the first song on there. I really loved it. Great stuff.
All right, let's go and move on to our second set of 3 songs here. Jesse, when we come back, let's since we're only going to have one more break after this, when we come back from this one, let's check in with our sponsors and the Angry Metal Guy and see what he thinks of all of this. How do you feel about that?
I love it. Let's do it.
All righty. Here we go. We've got The Soldier of Heaven, Hellfighters, and Race to the Sea, of which we did a reaction to the video.
I won't be coming home. I won't be going anywhere. I will guard this post forever. Here on the Alpine slope, where I did my final stand, I shall remain among the ice and snow that binds me to this mountain. A force of nature too strong, sent from above, where spirits lead the way, the wings will never fade. White Friday, I'll take the stairway to heaven. I'm sky high, when I die, I'll be immortal. Forever, I won't return to that mountain. I am the soldier of heaven. From a land across the ocean to the western front where they burn, from courage and devotion, the ascension turn. As the spring offenses keep churning, where the men would earn their name. See the tides of battle turning, and the foes ignite their flame. Hear the toll of the bell, kept fighting for 6 months in hell. As the war rages on, they fight at the edge of the Argonne. The toll of the bell, over 6 months in hell. Out of the trenches they came. As the war rages on, at the edge of the Argonne, hell fighters earning their name. We're keeping the kingdom free. As the North Duke falls and the battle horn calls, our life would never be the same. We were looking down the barrel of our gun. Now the war has come and the battle's begun. We are desperate to know the road. To the warrior we'll be marching till it's done. Lead the way, we will follow into the fray. We will hold the line, we will not be led astray. For king of our country, we are flooding the river. Our predecessor will be the end of the race to the sea. The last piece of Belgium's free. We're keeping a slipper, our cog in the war machine. October of 1914. As our foe draws forth, we are moving on north. We will never.
Damn it, I missed my cue there. All right, that section of 3 songs was brought to you by Grammarly. Robert Winfree knows all about Grammarly because he uses it for his coverage of MMA and various
Lie to
wrestling
the people,
shows.
Mark.
Don't you, Robert Winfree of the Screaming Boy podcast? You totally use Grammarly to help you with your writings.
I would, but don't lie to the people and say that I do when I don't. A wonderful service, absolutely. You should all get it. We're giving away a free trial of it. It's absolutely worth your time.
That's right. For you listeners of Robert Winfree's written material, Grammarly is offering a free download of the Grammarly software. Grammarly's AI-powered products help people communicate more effectively. Grammarly helps you write mistake-free, like Robert Winfree does, on Gmail, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and nearly anywhere else Robert Winfree writes on the web. Grammarly corrects hundreds of grammar, punctuation, and spelling mistakes while also catching contextual errors, improving your vocabulary, and suggesting style improvement so that you, too, can write like Robert Winfree, as he does for 401mania.com. To download Grammarly today, go to getgrammarly.com/W2M Network. Again, it's getgrammarly.com/W2M Network to download Grammarly for free. So, the Soldier of Heaven, which is a single that was released on January 7, 2022, the Italian-Austrian Front and the White Friday Avalanches, that's what that one's about. And we have Hellfighters, which is the 369th Infantry Regiment.
After I tell Mark more about that particular when Mark learns about the 369th Infantry Regiment, that's going to become his favorite song.
Okay, fair enough. The 369th Infantry Regiment of the United States of America, also known as the Harlem Hellfighters. Yep, I can already see where this is going. The Harlem Hellfighters. Hell up in Harlem, baby! Anyway, and then we have Race to the Sea, for which, as I said before, we did the reaction video for the song, much better than the actual video, which is just Sabaton playing in a puddle. This is Albert I of Belgium, where the waffles are from, fighting alongside Belgian soldiers who eat the waffles in the Battle of Yasser Arafat?
Syrup,
got it.
Syrup.
In the Battle of Syrup, at the end of... Thank you. At the end of the 1914 Race to the Sea. I feel like my lack of intelligence is bringing everybody else down over the years, and I like that Jesse is like just arriving in the basement that I dwell in. That's very cool to me. Race to the Sea came out, the single came out March 4th, 2022. Before I go over to Robert for his history lesson and thoughts on the songs themselves, Jesse Starcher, what does the Angry Metal Guy think of all this?
Oh, that is a great question. Well, I will be glad to tell you because they did a review for The War to End All Wars.
Oh, Angry Metal Guy, sexy me with your sexy reviews.
Well, let's drop some other scores here real quick. Kerrang gives it a 3 out of 5. Blabbermouth gives it an 8.5 out of 10. Sonic Perspectives gives it an 8.4 out of 10. Metal Injection, 8 out of 10. Ghost Cult Mag, 7 out of 10. And manofmuchmetal.com says 85%. Man of Much Metal.
Man of Much Metal?
Right.
I think Mark has now found the Metal Hammer of Doom equivalent of Kevin Carr.
Well, so far he hasn't annoyed me the way Kevin Carr has, so we'll see what he says.
Man of Much Metal. Well,
What's
hey,
a Kevin Carr?
He's
Don't
a fat
worry
guy.
about it.
He's a fat guy at the movies that I like to bully on our Damn You Hollywood show.
You don't even bully him. You point me at him and go, Winfree, bully.
Get him! Because he's so dumb.
You say stuff like that.
Anyway.
yes, back over to the Angry Metal Guy. Listen, Dr. A.N. Greer, which is angrier. I'll go ahead and read it here. This is the final few sentences. It's probably impossible ever to top Careless Rex. But when compared to newer output, I like The War to End All Wars a smidgen more than The Great War. But that's not enough to bump this up to a score it doesn't deserve. 3 out of 5. So, I mean, most of these are scores that are absolutely giving credit where credit's due, in my opinion. I mean, Sabaton is known for, this is their gimmick. This is their thing. They are going to discuss warfare in their songs, and they are going to, again, shine the light on some of the crazy stuff that happens. Not just, it's not like they aren't, I don't want to use the word prejudice, but it's more like they're not biased. How's that? They're not biased as to who they talk about either. I mean, they will talk about just about any infantry and some of the insanity that they have seen, and make a great song out of it. So, I mean, I agree with most of these scores. Not. It doesn't seem like they're giving them. Most of what we're reading here is not horrible. This is all like above average, and I'll, as we go through this album, you'll see. I agree.
All right, Robert, lay it on me. The audio, the visual, the historical, the satanical, the satirical.
Cirque du Soleil.
The Circus du Soleil. Go.
I can only give you a few of those.
Okay. The Circus du Soleil part?
No, I'm not that flexible. So, Soldier of Heaven is told from the perspective of any one of the number of victims of you mentioned it, the White Friday avalanches. This was a weird series of events that took place December 13th, 1916. Now, the most prominent one would have been the one that took place on Mount Mamalolda, which killed 270 soldiers.
Oof.
The avalanche struck
was it
barracks.
just act of God that caused these avalanches, or was it fracking or tank movements or what?
Fracking.
Yeah,
Well,
the early 20th century fracking that went on, dick.
It dislodged chronological particles that went backwards in time.
It's the greatest album ever already.
Anyway, there was the one that struck an Austro-Hungarian barracks and killed 270 soldiers. However, there were more than one avalanche on that particular day.
Yeah.
A lot of them, ultimately somewhere around the neighborhood of 2,000 victims,
Wow.
mostly soldiers, a handful of civilians.
Oof.
It is referred to as White Friday again. Now, you mentioned whether or not it was an act of God. There's some dispute about this. Both sides of the war at this point had been artillery shelling the mountainside.
I'm going to go with then it wasn't an act of God. They shot the mountain enough until it went to pieces like a cookie.
It didn't actually. Now, that said, it wasn't like nowadays we know how to do this with a degree of precision. It wasn't quite that. It was more, hey, I wonder what'll happen. And it's
hey,
really,
yo, I'm going to shoot that mountain. I bet you won't.
Hey, hold
obviously,
my beer.
Obviously, there's a degree of, we know this is kind of how this works, but it was not, these avalanches were not necessarily triggered by or observed to have been triggered by a singular, again, detonation of artillery or mortar fire or whatnot. So, there's that, and they tell a good story based around that, and it really is one of those, like, when you look into the history of warfare, you find the craziest stuff.
Right.
Like this. That's just, avalanches.
Yeah.
Who'd have thought? Hellfighters, as mentioned, tells the story of the 369th Infantry. This used to be a
Hashtag black folks.
it was originally formed as the 15th New York National Guard Regiment. It was eventually reincorporated to the main army and activated. Consisted mainly of African Americans.
Woo!
There were plenty of other people from, if you know anything about New York, you'll not be surprised to hear that there were also men from Puerto Rico, Cuba, Guyana, Liberia, Portugal, Canada, and the West Indies. So, a lot of people there. They served. They had a lot of different names, actually. The official nickname for the regiment, because all regiments have nicknames, they were officially nicknamed the Black Rattlers.
I'll bet.
I imagine at least one of their officers was from the American West. Or further in the South, because rattlesnakes aren't much of a thing up by New York. They were nicknamed the Men of Bronze by the French when they arrived.
That's racist.
It's because they're very well tanned.
It was, again, somewhat apocryphally, it was more the Germans who called them the Hellfighters.
Okay.
They spent, one of the things they're noted for, they spent 191 days in the frontline trenches, which is absurd.
Can you? I mean, when you think about, like, anytime you've watched a movie about trench warfare, like even look at like Wonder Woman or some of the other ones where, like 1919, I think it. Oh God, no, 19. What the hell is the name of the movie with the single shot?
1917.
1917.
1917. I knew it was
17
anyway.
or 16, one of those two.
1917.
It was 17.
Just think about your daily life and the amount of freedom that you have just to be able to move around. Even if you live in a house or something, and now imagine you're spending, how long was it in the trenches?
191 days.
Okay, now imagine you're spending 191 days in a tunnel, the size of a hallway.
More than any other American unit, they also suffered more casualties than any other American regiment.
I mean, is it a wonder some of these people came home and maybe had one or two mental health issues?
Right.
Like,
For whatever it's worth, this regiment was also the first of the Allied forces to cross over the Rhine River into Germany.
they don't make them like that anymore, I'll tell you that much. I mean, like,
Not
I'm not even
really,
making
no.
a joke. I'm not making a joke. And we don't need to get into a whole commentary about it, but I mean, when you think about the kinds of things that the average American finds uncomfortable right now, and you asked people over 100 years ago to sit in a hallway for 100 days, a dirt hallway, being shelled at, no showers, no nothing, just here's some food.
Make sure you walk on the boards, because if you step off into elements of the mud, it's deep enough to sink a horse, and we can't pull you out.
Right.
God.
Yeah, and that's where you lived for 100 days. People complained about the lockdown for 3 months.
But my freedoms.
People are like, I ain't wearing masks. These motherfuckers lived in a hallway of mud and had to walk on board for fear of drowning in said mud. I'm just saying, sometimes it's good to take stock of your life and have some perspective. That's just me.
Yeah, I mean, I'm wondering what bathroom facilities they had in the hallways of mud. I
They
don't
didn't
think
have
there
a
was
God
any.
intended.
They didn't have a bidet, I'll tell you that much. Jesus Christ.
Oh, in Soviet Russia, bidet have you.
It's true. It's very true. The last one.
Go ahead.
The last one is Race to the Sea, which describes an entire series of battles that took place in 1914. Once the Western Front had kind of settled, the big fear was one of the sides being flanked. So you had the southern line, which dead-ended into like the Alps, where Switzerland is on that French border. So you weren't terribly worried about somebody trying to pass through essentially impassable terrain. So the big strategic fear became, well, if either side gets their army north, they can sweep around and flank the whole line, and then it's all over. So both sides started fighting further north. They were extending their lines, and the logic behind this being, let's get to the North Sea, and if somebody can get there first, hey, we can win, because again, we can flank the whole rest of the line all the way down France. Now, in particular, we're dealing with, again, the Battle of Yser, where the Belgians, who fought heroically, including their king, as mentioned here, Albert I, who did not have to still be there fighting. He's your king, and there was still a monarchy in place there. He was the actual head of state. Could have evacuated. He stayed and he fought with his men, and rather than let the Germans completely occupy Belgium. If you know anything about Belgium and the Netherlands, these are the Low Countries, is kind of what they're referred to as, because they're technically below sea level. So they got, as they were starting to lose ground, rather than let Belgium be completely taken, they basically destroyed a bunch of seawalls, dikes, other things of this nature, and flooded enough of their country that the Germans couldn't get across it. And it wound up being this, I forget exactly how long it was, but there's this big layer of swampy terrain that they can't get around. And the last little bit of Belgium that is still technically free and under Belgian authority, and it's not much, it's like a single city. But they stopped it. The whole race to the sea winds up in a stalemate. The lines just stabilize, and we continue fighting the way we've been fighting for a couple of years.
All right, you want to talk about the music real quick?
I like Hellfighters. I mean, I like Soldier of Heaven. It tells a good story. I think musically, I enjoy Hellfighters the most of these particular set of three. It's hard to properly convey, what trench warfare is, and for as much as you can, this does a decent job musically. And Race to the Sea is perfectly fine. Like we're well within Sabaton's wheelhouse here, but they are executing quite well.
One of the things I noticed, it almost had kind of an 80s feel to it, but I was thinking like a Pat Benatar, Flashdance kind of a song. that first little beat there for Soldier of Heaven, you know, the dun, 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 you know, it had almost like a synthesizer 80s kind of vibe to it. It was just one of the things I picked up. But all three of these, you know, Race to the Sea it's a very Sabaton-y kind of song, you know, very marchy. Soldier of Heaven and Hellfighters are a little bit more my jam, so I'm sure you guys all like Race to the Sea the best. Jesse Starcher, did you like Race to the Sea the best?
No, Soldier of Heaven's my jam there. I like
go.
out of those.
Attaboy, Jesse, fucking boy.
almost the video that we covered for the Metal Hammer of Doom Extra, but I mean it was just Sabaton dancing around a dude that's dead on top of a mountain.
Well, I mean that's how you get your jollies off. That's what you got to do.
Listen, we're not here to kink shame, and I'm sure out there's somebody who's like has to have sex on top of a dead person, and you know what, that's their thing.
There's a few songs about that, I'm sure.
I'm sure.
Oh yeah.
You did just come from a black metal concert, right?
At least one person's on like Field or Tinder or Plenty of Fish, and it's just like my kink is I have to have sex on top of dead people, and I'm sure he'll find his forever person or persons.
Well, not for long, but you know, that's why he just keeps staying on there.
God. This show is so weird. Like half of it, like regular review, half of it. So let me tell you about the people on dating apps who fuck on top of dead people. Like, wait, what?
The app, I believe the app is NCR.
Okay. Jesse, do you have anything else to say about the music before we go over to Coop?
No. Coop, go ahead, Coop.
Yeah. Well, one thing I'll definitely mention in terms of trench warfare, if you ever want to hear really awesome music about that is black metal. 1914 is a really fucking awesome band. All their music is about World War I, and it's fucking awesome. In terms of other music about World War I, though, Race to the Sea, I found, during our review, I enjoyed it. Upon further listens, it's kind of all right. I don't really feel like it sticks out quite as much. Soldier of Heaven, I really, really enjoyed. Just hearing kind of those 80 synth beats kind of popping in as well was really nice. Not something that I really expected to hear in this album. It was definitely a welcome change from kind of what can sometimes be a little bit of monotony. I think overall, though, this trio of songs are really strong. The music itself is interesting. The stories behind them are also very nice, educational, really interesting. Something you can't always say about a lot of bands. Really dig it.
All right. Well, we have the last four songs that we're going to listen to tonight. Lady of the Dark, The Valley of Death, and Christmas Truth, and then Versailles. So we'll go one more round here. We'll get a little history lesson from Robert. We'll talk about the music, and then we'll go right into plugs. So here we go. Last four songs. Once again, Lady of the Dark, Valley of the Death, Christmas Truce, and Versailles.
On that little shining light, Lord, Silence. Oh, I remember the silence on a cold winter day. After many months on the battlefield, and we were used to the violence. Then all the cannons went silent, and the snow fell. Voices sang to me from no man's land. We are all friends. And today we're all brothers, tonight we're all friends. On a moment of peace in a war that never ends. Today we're all brothers, we drink and unite. Now Christmas has arrived and the snow turns the ground white. Hear carols from the trenches, we sing the holy night. Our guns lay to rest on snowflakes.
The war had been raging and ravaging for 4 years, leaving millions of casualties from all sides. In the trenches of the front lines, people have asked the question, what is the price of peace? How many more must die? Exactly 5 years after the assassination of Franz Ferdinand, Germany is forced to sign an unconditional surrender. For the signing of this historical document, the French city of Versailles is chosen.
Sign a treaty to change the world. Tensions fall and the peace unfurled. Nothing like what had come before. It's a deal, it's a treaty that will end the war. Sign a treaty to change the world. Tensions fall and the peace unfurled. Nothing like what had come before. It's a deal, it's a treaty that will end the war.
No, it's the treaty that'll end the war for now. I mean, they basically just kind of took a break. And then they went right back to it. So, that Treaty of Versailles song right there, though, I love it. It's probably like one of my favorite songs on here. It feels like it should be at the end of a movie somewhere. You know, it's a very celebratory song. It almost has like Jesse. It almost has like a holiday vibe to it. I feel like I should play it at Christmas time.
Well, Christmas Truce definitely. So
No,
maybe
not Christmas Truce. No.
I got you.
You play that at a funeral.
I imagine I'm the only one here who actually did hear Sarajevo.
I actually listened to a little bit of it before the podcast tonight because I wanted to check that out.
Yeah, Sarajevo and the Treaty of Versailles the exact same song.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
Which is a very, I actually think it's a very strong artistic choice to show that functionally all this did was ramp up another war.
It wasn't the same lyrics, though, right? It was
different lyrics, but but the music is essentially identical.
Did you like how earlier today I was comparing the post WrestleMania 17 stuff to the beginning to the early 1930s Germany, Robert?
Yeah, not really. You see, I'm just gonna look. I mentioned this when we reviewed
Munich.
No, not Munich. When we reviewed Cheaper by the Dozen yesterday.
Okay. Boy, I was way off.
Yeah, just hang on. I'll get to my point. In an effort to kind of find something less artificial, by which I mean I could have found, what's the, stevia. I don't know, whatever the worst artificial sweetener is. And I fell down a bit of a rabbit hole about World War II documentaries, and I stumbled across a series that is ongoing. That's done by actually the same guy who does the. If you're not familiar, there's a gentleman whose first name is Indy, and he does the history episodes that on Sabaton songs.
Oh,
he's part of their YouTube channel and whatnot, and. Yeah, he's got a couple of other YouTube accounts because it's easier to do these via different channels rather than have them all be under the same umbrella. He's got one that was all about discussing World War I. There's a segment that's just about the time between World Wars I and II and everything that led up to World War II and how the various players came to power, et cetera, et cetera. And there's World War II in real time, which started a couple of years ago and was just going to be essentially a weekly. I think they go twice a month, and there's 2 series that go along with this. One is purely military. That's the one that Indy does, and it's just from X date to X date, and it's whatever happened on these dates, however many years ago. Here's what happened. It lets him go into great detail about specific military maneuvers, tactics, strategy, personnel, etc. And he can cover. And when you go that slow, you can kind of cover the whole theater of war, because World War II, if you look at how many countries were at some point involved in a real capacity, it covered like over 90% of the occupied world. There's like 4 countries that actually remain neutral from start to finish. And that's it. The sister series to that is done by a different gentleman. It's Spartacus Olsen, and it's called The War Against Humanity. And it focuses exclusively on the civilian cost and the atrocities and the Holocaust and things like that. So I've been binging that basically for the last 7 days, the last 5-6 days. And if you're interested in that topic, or even if you're not, if you think you have a strong enough constitution to not be overly distraught by facing the horrors of humanity, you really should give it a look, because it's one of the best series I've seen that does such a good job of humanizing these impossibly large numbers of what has been done. So, long story short, no, Mark, you comparing the WWE's reality post-WrestleMania 17 to the 1930s in Germany did not strike an especially powerful chord within me.
I thought it was mostly accurate, but hey, whatever.
Be nice to Vince. He was raped as a kid.
Aw.
Wait a minute. Really?
Yeah. It totally was.
Oh. I'm very sorry to hear that.
Some stuff makes a lot more sense now, doesn't it?
All right. Well,
yeah, especially his need for an incest angle in his life.
Hey, what we need to do is talk about where you can hear this album. And did you know, Robert Winfree, that you can hear this album on Amazon Music?
I assumed so. I'm glad to have my assumptions confirmed by you and your immediate access to their large library of over 70 million streaming songs, podcasts, and I believe they have audiobooks available as well. Now, if only this particular service were available for me on some kind of trial basis, so I don't have to spend any money to make sure that this is something I want.
Well, Robert Winfree, today is your lucky day.
Is it?
It is, because we are giving away a free 30-day trial of the Amazon Music Unlimited service. So please click the link in the description of this podcast at getamazonmusic.com/W2Mnetwork. Again, getamazonmusic.com/W2Mnetwork for a free 30-day trial of the aforementioned Amazon Music Unlimited. You can check out the entire Sabaton catalog, and then when you're done with that, you can check out more bands, more battle metal bands, more progressive metal bands that sound like Sabaton, and then when you're done with all that, you can listen to something else. You could listen to Randy Savage Be a Man, which we're going to review next week for WrestleMania.
So let's listen to some 1914.
That's right. You can listen to 1914. All right, so just to kind of wrap things up here, Lady of the Dark is about Milunka Savic, a female Serbian soldier from 1912 to 1919.
Yeah. Milunka Savic is the most decorated female combatant in the history of modern warfare.
Oh, I should tell my daughter about her.
She'd pulled a Mulan, basically. Like when her brother was activated as part of the a Serbian military unit in the start of World War, not even World War I, like the first Balkan War. So she didn't want him to serve, and she cut her hair, hid her gender, and joined up.
Nice.
And she fought very well and hid her identity for quite some time. When they discovered that she was a woman after she got injured, they knew she was a good fighter and didn't want to lose the soldier. They didn't want to, prosecute her or anything. So they offered her a spot in more on the rear guard duty or in something like nursing. And she just stood at attention and said, no, I'll wait. About an hour later, they realized she wasn't going away and sent her back to the front lines.
Nice.
She didn't serve in World War II, but she kind of snubbed when the Germans were occupying Serbia during World War II. Serbia at this particular point in time was part of Yugoslavia, which I don't think which does not exist anymore.
It hasn't existed since the Berlin Wall fell down.
Yeah, Yugoslavia has been gone for a while.
Wait, really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Huh.
Do you not remember the Clinton years, sir? Were you like a baby when this was going on? Where there was,
You
there
probably
was fighting.
say yes to that.
There was fighting going
he
on.
knows the answer.
There was fighting going on in Serbia, and this was all like during, I think, the Monica Lewinsky thing, because I want to say that Clinton fired like missiles over there, and the news was referring to them as Monica missiles in a very wag the dog way.
Well, if there's one thing that man knows what to have to do, it's to blow a load.
Yes, he certainly knows what to do with his missile when Jewish girls are around. Anyway, back to you, Robert Winfree.
Anyway, there was a big kind of banquet that was arranged for some visiting German generals, officers, personnel, and whatnot. She flat out refused to attend, and in response was sent to a concentration camp where she spent 10 months before the war ended.
Ouch.
But she survived. She didn't die until 1973.
Wow. All right, good for her.
He has balls of steel.
You want to make a movie about a woman. Hey, we got some real ones here. You don't need to fabricate Gabrielle Union as the most perfectest wife ever.
Okay, we got it. We heard all about it the other night.
What movie is this?
Cheaper by the Dozen, which is currently hurting Robert's soul. The Valley of Death, 1917, the Battle of Doiran. The Christmas Truce is the Christmas Truce of 1914, and then Versailles refers to the Treaty of Versailles, which they thought would end the war to end all wars, and it basically just caused a timeout while everyone geared back up again and restarted it a few years later.
But Mark, don't you understand? Neville Chamberlain,
yes,
at the Munich conference, he was he played such a critical role in making sure that Britain was ready.
Yes, asshole. I reviewed the movie with you. I got it.
I have to get a shot in it. That stupid ending.
Which movie was this?
Munich, The Edge of War. It was on Netflix.
We should talk about the greatest World War I movie of all time, The King's Man.
Nope. And I've already done that.
I know.
So the Battle of Doiran, just to get things a little bit back on track here.
Yes, sir.
Took place in Bulgaria. The United Kingdom was trying to press into Bulgaria at this particular point in time. The battle lasted from April 22nd to May 9th, all in the year of our Lord 1917. And despite being outnumbered, there was only one division of the Bulgarians, about 30,000 men, to the three divisions of the British, totaling 43,000 men. Much better prepared. In fact, the number of mortars each side carried, the British had 110 and 440 machine guns to 35 mortars and 130 machine guns on the parts of the Bulgarians. But they sent out Miro and all was well. At the end of it, when the British basically gave up on attacking this fortified location, they'd had 12,000 casualties to only 2,000 on the sides of the Bulgarians. So it's a
lopsided victory.
Pretty lopsided victory in favor of the Bulgarians there.
Right.
The Christmas Truce is a famous, spontaneous event in Christmas of 1914, all along the Western Front in Europe, when people just stopped trying to kill each other for a little bit and remembered that they were all humans. And all across the lines, again, this was not organized. This was not condoned. In fact, there was many higher-ups on both sides of the conflict who were upset about various commanding officers who allowed this to happen. But people met in no man's land. They traded drinks and gifts and played soccer. Like, they just had a good Christmas, and then everyone went back to their trenches and went back to killing each other. It's one of the most well-known, but still one of the most emotionally resonant bits of humanity from the inhuman insanity that came out of that was World War I.
Robert, give your final impressions of these four songs, but also the album, and then I'll move to Jesse, and we'll close out with Cooper's thoughts.
I like that they played around a little bit with the look. Sabaton has a very distinct style, and that's certainly not it's not a bad thing. But they play around with it a little bit here. You guys mentioned some of the other influences that you could hear. We get some stuff that's a bit more of a slower. They do a good job of capturing the theme of their stories with their music. There's a reason that the Dreadnought song is a bit slower, and the pacing of the beat mimics the sound of waves as they kind of come in. And they, of course, have waves in there as a bit of a sound effect. Versus some of the stuff that's a bit more upbeat and frantic. Some stuff that is meant to celebrate. We don't celebrate war, and I think that's a thing that needs to be accepted. But you can celebrate the heroism that it brings out in people without glorifying, again, the atrocities that are committed in war. And it's a fine line to walk, but I like the way that Sabaton, whenever they tell these more heroic stories or about heroic characters, they're not afraid to be a bit more uplifting. Whereas there's just such a... Because war is so terrible and by all rights should never happen, yet does constantly because human beings are not creatures who do what we should the vast majority of the time. You can condemn a war and you cannot want to glorify it, and you should certainly never lie about it, which is a big thing that happened a lot of the time, especially pre-World War I. There were just myths about the realities of war that were spread around, and thankfully those have mostly been dispelled, but the pendulum kind of swings too far the other way in some cases where everyone thinks that, well, every engagement, the totality of Vietnam was just some cross between Platoon and Apocalypse Now. I wish I were joking, but there are people who think that.
Mm-hmm.
And it makes you want to put your head through a wall. Because no, that's not reality. Reality is more complicated than that. It always is. And yeah, war is, war is one of the worst things imaginable because of what it does and what it brings out in us. But you can also tell the truth about some of the heroics that it has inspired in the people under the worst conditions imaginable, and that should be celebrated as well. So they're not afraid to do that at times. They also do a great job of, again, finding these stories that are maybe lesser known and shining a spotlight on them and encourage. And their music is probably done more to encourage people to look up figures and events in a historical context than a lot of, history teachers have been able to inspire. So,
almost assuredly. All right, Robert. Well, it's great to have you on here for the insight, and just, it's nice that when you like something, you gush in your own special way. So I always enjoy having you on for these Sabaton reviews and whatever else you're into. Maybe some other YouTube artist doing something with a Kraken. I don't know. But
look, when Jonathan Young's sea shanty metal album comes out in the near future, I'm going to insist.
We will bump you into the rotation. Jesse Starcher, you've been quiet tonight because we've shown a spotlight on Robert Winfree, but I want you to have your say here. What are your thoughts on these 4 songs and the album in total?
Well, I will say that the spotlight definitely belonged on Winfree because everything that he said, I absolutely 100% agree with. Sabaton has a way of celebrating the perseverance of the human spirit, even through warfare. And that's what I see a lot of these songs focus on. Oh, we got this great technology, but, the driving force behind the war to end all wars is a human element. And people living through these horrific times, Sabaton finds a way to celebrate them. So I will tell you, these last 4 songs, well, the last 3 are some of the most powerful on this album. The Valley of Death is my favorite song off this album. Mm-hmm. Absolutely love it. Christmas Truce, that was the 3rd video we thought of maybe possibly doing a Metal Hammer of Doom extra on. And after watching the video, it was so powerful that I was like, I do not want to actually sit and bag on this like I know we will on the other Sabaton videos that we're watching. So I was like, we got to leave that one alone because there's a very powerful message that's being taught, or at least shown in that video about the psychology, I guess, of warfare, where people are fighting to the death. They stop for one day to celebrate a holiday together and then go back to killing each other. And the way that video ends is the beautiful piano that we hear throughout that song. It explodes, and that's pretty much the end of the video. Something so beautiful is destroyed by war. And so there's a very powerful message in that Christmas Truce song. And Versailles, just like you said, Mark, it belongs in a movie. It's something that definitely inspires. It has that feeling. So evokes that feeling of epic, movie-worthy track. So, but yeah, overall, I really enjoyed this album. I can't find a song that I didn't like, really. I mean, I've enjoyed everything that I heard, and yes, I want to go learn some more about some of these figures that are in here, some of these battles that took place. So, enjoyed myself. Robert Cooper.
Yeah, I really feel what the band really tapped into here towards the back of the album was really powerful. The Christmas Truce, there's actually a podcast I listen to every weekday called History Daily, which is done by Noiser and Airship Podcast, which is really good. And he did just a 15-minute podcast on it. And it's something to me that really speaks to humanity as an actual quality group of people, how even if in the worst of times with just hatred and bloodshed and battling, you can stop naturally. Like, this wasn't thrust upon anybody. They were singing Christmas songs in the trenches, and somebody finally poked their head out and was like, "Hey, it's Christmas. Merry Christmas. Do y'all want to not want to kill each other for a while?"
We don't have to do this right now.
Yeah, and if I'm not mistaken, I thought it lasted more than one day.
Oh, really? Okay.
The thing that actually, and this actually is something that really burns me up on the inside, is the fact that after this happened, all the generals pretty much on all the sides pretty much forbade anybody else from doing it. And that just...
We're trying to win a war here. I can't have you people being human beings.
Yes. Yeah, come on.
Kill
somebody.
Yeah, well, I mean...
Poking at them.
And for me, it's really... emblematic of what's going on right now with the Russia and Ukraine situation with that war.
I had some feelings when I heard this album, and it's kind of with today's events and this album coming out, it just made me feel weird. I don't know why. It's not like I was like, oh my gosh, Sabaton, how dare you? But you definitely have that like in the back of your mind.
Yeah, and the thing I'm thinking of more is the fact that not all the Russian soldiers are evil. I mean, they're not bad people. It's some man with a complex that feels that he should rule others even when they don't want it, and that's something that really struck me, is to think about how there's this, just even now, if they could have some sort of truce, that they wouldn't be able to keep it for long because they'd be fearing for their families, because there are powerful people in play that see life as expendable, and it's very frustrating. And that's kind of what I look at with the Christmas Truce, is that at the end of the day, the people in power, they're gonna replace you and keep moving, and it's awful. And it really speaks, I think, to the quality of what the good that humanity could be just with the Christmas Truce in of itself, that they stopped and there was peace. Like, what could have happened, if we kept letting it go? Which, perhaps warfare is inevitable. Humanity's unfortunate sort of motivation is greed in a lot of ways, but it really sucks, frankly. It's the song and the album, I think, speak to the better aspects of what can come out of a war, And it's something I find interesting because I'm a liberal douchebag. I've made that apparent enough. But Sabaton's one of those bands that I really feel like, and everybody's talking about, we need unity. I really feel like what they speak about is something that is very global. You know, it's not, in a way, it's not really glorifying a nation or an ideal. It's just glorifying humanity, you know, glorifying the best of what we can be. And sometimes even the worst situations, like, you know, it's not really saying, like, it's, you know, they're talking about the stormtroopers here, like they're not being like, yeah, man, we love us some Germany, even though, you know, they were kind of on what in, you know, American eyes is seen as the bad side. They're not really saying like, hey, these guys are great, but this is a story from, you know, from their experience. And I can really appreciate that. I really feel like they bring something as an overall band that is something that everybody can rally around. And I really appreciate that. That being said, for me, the album, I give it a solid 4 out of 5. There's some songs definitely that are going on my Sabaton playlist. There are definitely some songs here that are going to be bangers when I hear them live, because every time Sabaton comes around, I try to go see them. They are a fantastic live show. They have so much energy. And yeah, I can't. I don't feel like I can give this album any more praise than I have.
Yeah, I'm going to give it a solid A, and that wraps up our review of Sabaton, The War to End All Wars. We've said it like a million times tonight. Here's 1,000,001. We kick off Wrestling Week, our celebration of WrestleMania, with on March 30th with our trivia for wrestling that my wife was the scorekeeper on and Jesse hosted. Pat Mullen, Gavin Napier, Bill Yankovic, Leonard Hayhurst, and who am I missing? Jesse. Leonard, Bill, Gavin, Pat. Who was the fifth person?
That was it. We didn't have a fifth person. We only had
that's
4.
right. The fifth person was supposed to be Liz.
Right. It's like, no wonder I can't remember them. They don't exist.
Yeah, they were not there. So there's that, but then in the evening, we'll all be back again, the 3 Metal Hammer of Doom fellows that you know and love, to do Randy Savage's rap album. And then on the 6th, we're back to Lordy University. We'll be doing Abusement Park, so check that out. We'll hopefully have another video for you. We're going to take a break on the 13th. I'll throw up an old Metal Hammer of Doom. I'll figure out which one I'm going to do at that point. But in the evening, Jesse and I'm going to talk about this now. I haven't been talking about it, but we're almost ready to do this. And Jesse pesters me daily with his thoughts on what we're doing here.
Right.
So it's not going to be its own new podcast. It's still going to be a TV party. But we are doing once a month. We are embarking on what I am calling the selected works of David Simon. And these are shows and seasons of shows that he was the producer, one of the producers on, writer on, etc. If you go to his Wikipedia,
Jesse, how much did you have to twist Mark's arm to get him to do this?
No, this is my idea. So there's on David Simon's Wikipedia page. If you don't know who he is, he created The Corner, The Wire, Treme, Generation Kill, etc. And he's been an author. He's written many books, etc., etc. Anyway, part of his Wikipedia page, there's an entire list of everything that he's basically the creator or producer of. Starting with Homicide: Life on the Street season 5, and going all the way to a show that's actually starting on April 25th. We Own This City, which we will also be doing a review of, but more on that later. So once a month, the third or so, or the middle Wednesday of every month, Jesse and I are looking at one season of a David Simon project, and we're going in order. So he is listed as the producer of Homicide: Life on the Street season 5. So Jesse and I will be reviewing that on April 13th, and then season 6, and then season 7, and then we're into The Corner, I believe, and then The Wire, and then Treme, and then I think Show Me a Hero, and then The Deuce. So this is going to take over a year to do, since we're only doing these once a month, and there's multiple seasons of every show. We're only doing one season a month, but I'm excited about this. I'm excited to go on this journey with you, Jesse.
Why?
Yeah. Yes, from the Corner to The Wire, the selected works of David Simon. Are you excited, Jesse?
Oh, wow, man. Reliving this Homicide right now, Homicide Life on the Street. Of course, I started watching it with my wife, and we'd watched those shows back in the day. And it was probably my first ever, like, procedural cop drama I think I've ever, like, was into and watched. Law and Order be damned. I was watching Homicide Life on the Street, and we are having a blast. We're about, 6 episodes into season 6 now, and there's not stopping. I thought to myself, I need to stop but I'm noting every episode as I go through. So, but if I stopped right now, Mindy would kill me. So unfortunately, I'll probably have Homicide Life on the Street done by next month.
How many was it? It's like 22 episodes for season 5, right?
Yeah, we're pulling.
Yeah, I gotta get started on my watch
minutes.
of it. I haven't, like, you started a while ago. I'm like, I got other crap I got to do, so I actually need to get started on it this week. In any case, we're back to doing metal again on April 20th. We're doing the new Ghost album in Para. And then I just made a switch. We were supposed to do the Red Hot Chili Peppers, but Rammstein announced a new album, Zeit. So we're going to do that instead. That takes us to April 27th. We're back to Lordy University on May 4th. We're going to be doing Spooky Sextravaga Spectacular. And then Fozzy Boombox. And then another Homicide Life on the Street. And then for Robert Cooper, a little early birthday present here for you, Watain, The Agony and Ecstasy of Watain. How do you feel about that there, Robert?
I'm moist.
I'm sure you are. And then finally, the day before my birthday, I can't think of a better way to spend my birthday. Actually, I can, because we're going to do it the following night when we review We Own This City from David Simon. But the day before my birthday, it's a double shot here. We're having a party. Me, Jesse, and Robert Cooper are going to throw me a little birthday party because we're going to review Def Leppard, Diamond Star Halos. I cannot wait. I love Def Leppard. Don't you love Def Leppard, Robert Cooper?
To be honest, their earlier work...
No, please lie to me.
Okay. They're great when their drummer had 2 arms.
Perfect.
Oh
no, big slim dog. All right.
I mean, actually, I'm actually really don't mind Def Leppard. Like, even their poppier stuff. Like, I actually do like Def Leppard quite a bit.
I mean,
like,
who doesn't love Hysteria? Even Robert Winfree loves Hysteria. Come on.
Do not lie to the people, Mark.
Everyone loves Hysteria. It's an amazing, almost perfect album.
As a subset of everyone, you are still lying to the people.
All right. I'm done here. Robert Winfree, tell them where you write and what you write about. Quickly.
Well, as you were so kind enough as to point out earlier, I write for 411mania.com. I cover professional wrestling a few nights a week. AEW's Dark Elevation on Mondays. MLW's stuff on Thursdays. WWE SmackDown on Friday.
God bless you.
The last few episodes, I've needed it. Good grief. SmackDown has started phoning it in if it's not Roman or Paul Heyman talking, and it's painful. Hey, look, here's more Charlotte Flair and Ronda Rousey. You want to know all the... Behold, the field where I grow my fucks to give, and it is barren.
Nice.
I also covered...
Of all the things that was going to get you to curse tonight.
Charlotte Flair will get me to curse an awful lot.
Well, but she's the queen. Don't you understand? We have to make her look strong.
Stop. Just stop.
You know, it's really funny. If you want to laugh, like, go pull a picture of her from every year of her WWE career and try to kind of guess what work she's had done.
All right, it's
Which
almost
is kind
midnight.
of unfortunate.
It's almost midnight, and I'm sure Jesse would like to go see his wife.
Hang on.
Please
Yeah,
finish.
that does sound like a fun game. I might try that. I also cover mixed martial arts actions over in the MMA zone of 411mania.com. This last week, the UFC's returned to London. Good card. Really surprisingly good card all the way around. Some great finishes, including a knockout of the year contender. This week will be UFC back in Ohio. They're in Columbus. They've brought a card that's got some hidden gems on it. Nothing that's jumping off the page at you, but I'm somewhat looking forward to it, so I will be covering that on Saturday. And if you're interested in mixed martial arts, I host the 411 Ground and Pound MMA podcast. Wherever you happen to be listening to this, plug that in there, and you should be able to find me musing about the state of mixed martial arts and so on and so forth. So if that at all interests you, give that a listen. I appreciate any and all support that particular program can get. It seems to be growing a little bit. So yay. I'm very happy to see that poor show. It's shifted around so much. And it finally does seem to be actually getting a bit of organic growth. So if that at all interests you, please do give it a listen. If not, well, tell someone you know that you think might be interested. I'll take that as well. And I will be back tomorrow for the TV party for Disenchanted. So be on the lookout for that.
Yeah, I finally finished it. Now I understand what you mean by, like, nothing was resolved.
Not a darn thing.
Yeah. If that's the end of the show, they done messed up. All right, speaking of done messed up, hey, Big Time, tell them about your podcast.
All right, then. So, yeah, the Source Material Comics Podcast does have its own feed right now. If you are getting the W2M feed, you're going to get the Source Material Comics Podcast right in there along with the rest of the other great shows. But if you want to find me and just subscribe totally to the Source Material Comics Podcast, you can do so, and you just get the content that shows up on my feed. And speaking of that, we should have pretty soon an episode of Unspoken Issues where we talk about the Carnage Cosmic. So that is where the Carnage symbiote gets on the Silver Surfer. Happened in 1998. We're going to be recording that soon, so that should be dropping. I will tell you that episode 303 was the Unbeatable Squirrel Girl finally making her debut on the Source Material Podcast, where Evan Bevins and Cole Marentet got together with me, and we talked about the first appearance of Squirrel Girl along with the Unbeatable Squirrel Girl Volume 1, first 4 issues. So that was a lot of fun. If you enjoy Ryan North and some good humor in your comics, this is right up your alley. And then dropping Friday, special bonus episode, just a solo one where I take a look at a one-shot from 1994 of Spider-Man. It's a flip book. So if you know much about flip books back in the 90s, you get one story on one side, you flip it over, and you get another story on the other side. So you got a Spider-Man story where he faces off with the villain Humbug. And there's a theme here. There's a theme here because if you flip it over, on the other side, you got Orkin Exterminator #1. That's right. The Orkin Man makes his Marvel debut. And it's funny stuff.
I'm sure he'll be getting his own Disney Plus series in the next 2 to 3 years.
Right. So anyway, that's like a quick 20-minute episode. So if you guys keep an eye out, that's going to drop Friday. I will be making an appearance on the MCU's Bleeding Edge this Friday. We're going to be talking top 3, whoever the panel is. I know it's going to be me. It's going to be Jeff. I don't know who else is joining us, but it's going to be us discussing our top 3 MCU TV universe, whatever, supporting characters. We're not just looking at the top main characters. We are going to be looking at the answer is foggy. All right,
just stop.
It might make the list. I got to get 3 on there though, so I got to get 3. And then finally, I made an appearance on Kapow, the Pop Cultured Podcast, where we discussed another list. We came up with our top 10 comic book covers, and these are personal favorites mixed in with like arguments about why it should be legitimately the top comic book cover ever. So our video feed, I think, dropped this week, and it's just going from 10 to 6. And we talked a lot. We had 4 people on there. We had visually, we're showing you the cover. We're talking about it. There was a good time to talk about some of the fun stuff that we've seen on comic book shelves, or I should say, even at the local 7-Eleven. Trust me, those comics made it in there. But check that out. That should be on YouTube somewhere. Just look up Kapow, the Pop Cultured Podcast. And that is all my plug.
All right, Robert Cooper, take me home, baby doll.
My friend Hannah did a podcast once.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
It's probably never coming out again, but you know what, at this point,
I hope Hannah gets your friend Nick on a podcast before he ever makes it here.
I hope she does. Get him on that Remind me why I'm sober. Crossed over with Dr. Nicholas Canada, which he now gets his doctor, and I told him his doctorate. And I asked him, if I Photoshop your face on Dr. Nick from The Simpsons, will you put that as your contact photo for the college? And he said, yes, I will. So I'm going to do that one day. But regardless, that's the only plug I have, because otherwise I sit in my house with my cat and be like, man, I need to get that nail out of the wall and fix that before before I have to leave here one day.
All right. Thank you, folks. Thank you, Robert Winfree, for joining us here on the Metal Hammer of Doom. This has been our review of Sabaton, the War to End All Wars. For the Boys of Summer, as I remembered we called ourselves back in 2016 or 17, whatever year I'm currently working on uploading stuff. Be well, be safe, and behave.